everyone, welcome back to the makeup chair. Today I'm going to show you guys how to create this purple smoky eye using this palette, which is highly requested. It is the Born to Run by Urban Decay. We are using the purple tones, the orangey tones. I'm really excited about this look. Super easy. I know you guys can do this, so let's get started. Before I start this tutorial, I have to show you this. Is that not the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? It's a little pen. This is YSL and it's one of those like pump things, but it's perfume and it is so nice. It smells like heaven. Click and go. That's what it's called. There's so much I have to show you guys today, actually. I'm so excited. Let's get into this. So clearly I've already done half of one eye. I've also done the brow on this side. So this time I use this one by It Cosmetics and it is in dark brown. It's still a little light for me, so I just went in with a bit of black eyeshadow and set it. Urban Decay primer. You have to use a primer for this one, right? Because I tried doing this look without a primer and it did not work. I'm going to be cutting the crease later, so I'm going to keep this brush for cutting the crease, but I'll show you guys that in a second. As always, the brushes that I'm using are by Cosmetics. This is the 9-piece set. I know a lot of you guys have already ordered this already. All of the brushes that I use in my Monday makeup lessons, and it's the only set that you need. Check out the description box. I have a discount code. The palette that we're using, I've already showed you guys at the start of this video, but it is this one by Urban Decay, the Born to Run palette. We are going to start off by setting very slightly a little bit of the lightest shade from this palette just with a blending brush, and literally we're going into the crease area just like that. Just in this, like this area here, not on the lid, not on the brow bone, just in this area here. And then we're gonna go in with this orange eyeshadow. So by applying this as a little bit of a base, it just gives this something to sit on top of so it will blend for you. If you're amazing at blending, just go straight in with the orange. We're gonna be using two brushes, one for applying, one for blending. And we're gonna take the gorgeous orange. So I'm gonna start in this outer corner, and we're going over that area that we applied that lighter shade. And you see how much a smoother blend you get? And just working it in there. And this is going above the lid and into that crease. You're gonna blend this over and back, working right into that socket. And then I'm gonna switch to the clean brush and we're gonna soften these edges here. So I'm just gonna soften them. Now what I want you guys to do is take your fade shade. So if you're looking at this palette, I want you guys to figure out where's our fade shade in this palette. This is the color that we're using. And what would be a matching fade shade for this? Did you get it? Did you guess right? This one right here. Apply a little bit of this and we're gonna go around the edges of that orange. So you're literally just going doo-doo-doo-doo. And you don't want to apply too much. Keep it nice and light. And then we're gonna take our blending brush again and we are gonna softly go back over that. But now we're gonna work on the lid. So we're gonna switch to a flat brush this time and we're going to use the purple shade. So I'm going to be using these two purples here. We may pop a little bit of this in and a little bit of this in later, but let's just focus on these for now. So I'm taking my flat brush, I'm going to tap it into this eyeshadow right here, which is the matte shade, and the lid should be kind of slightly sticky. It's almost set by itself now, but it's still slightly sticky. And we're going to start on the outer edge of the lid and we're really pressing that in there. Press that down, all of that pigment off that brush, just really pressing it onto the lid, and try not to kind of disturb too much of what we've done up here already. The top bristles here are just ever so slightly catching that crease, but that will just spray these top edges out and I'll give you a kind of a softer blend so that the top of the bristles are very gently caressing the crease. Such a beautiful kind of purpley pinky tone. Now for the inner lid, I'm actually going to switch to the shimmer. Start to apply this on this inner lid, filling all of that in and then matching it up with the other purple. The black and the purple here just to deepen this look ever so slightly. So I'm going to take a little bit of the black and I'm just going to tap this on this outer sixth of the eye. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just on this outer edge basically. And I'm using the same brush, so it has a little bit of a kind of a purple tone to it. And then I'm slowly bringing it up just to kind of caress that crease, just about to the halfway point. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this purple and we're going to kind of tap this a little closer now to the center. Now I'm just going to take a clean blending brush and just soften out this crease. I'm going to go back in with that blending brush and apply a little bit more of that orange. Just going to lightly apply this around what we've already done. Apply a little bit of concealer on the back of your hand. And then what I want you guys to do is take like a lip brush or something quite small. I'm going to use this one, which is the L29. Around the brows. I'm going to take my pinky then and I'm just going to literally like tap it like that. And that will remove the excess. Then I'm going to wipe it off my hand. And then I'm going to take a clean finger and just tap it over the top. And this will blend out that concealer. Give us a nice sharp line. I'm going to take this eyeshadow right here, which is what we originally used for the lid, and apply that over the top of the concealer for a nice defined sharp brow. A little bit more of that concealer. So I'm just going to go to this inner corner just in here, and just imagine that you're applying like a highlighter, you know? You're just gonna apply that right in that inner corner and then slowly bring it out. Just like so. I love the tip of this brush because it just allows you to really get into that crease and then bring it down. And then we're gonna take our ring finger and just literally tap it over the top, and this will just fade it into the lid. And we're actually gonna use that shadow that we used underneath the brows. So this one right here. And I'm gonna tap this over the top of that concealer. Really focusing mostly on that inner corner and then feathering it across the concealer. Then I want you guys to take a little bit of the orange and a little bit of our fade shade, that kind of peachy tone, on the same brush. And I want you guys to sort of feather this so that we have like a little fade between the concealed area and then the purple that's on the lid. We're gonna take a little bit of that original purple and we're gonna apply that just where that kind of orangey tone meets the lid. I'm then gonna take a little bit of this other purple here, still using that same brush this whole time, and tap that over where the purple meets the lid, and then take a little bit of the black and then fade the purple with the black onto the lid. And then we're going to apply a little bit of glitter. How beautiful is this glitter? It kind of has every tone that we've used on the lid in this glitter, and this is in the shade Grind. And I love these because they're like little eyeliners. Just gonna tap that over the top of what we've applied, and just take your finger and just tap it. Just so you're getting a tiny little bit of glitter, and it's sort of fading from like tons of glitter into no glitter. A little layer of eyeliner, you may not need this. I'm just gonna coat right next to the lashes and kind of onto the lashes as well. I'm just gonna clean up underneath my eyes, apply the rest of my makeup and lashes, and I'll be right back to finish off the look. So just a quick change. To finish off the eyes, all I did is I took that lip brush that we were using to apply everything and just swapped that underneath my eyes. I didn't apply any extra product, I just used whatever's left over. Lots of mascara, and the mascara that I was actually using today is this one. It's by L'Oreal and it's the Ultimate Mascara. I think this is gonna be great for anybody who has problems with like their wrists, like maybe you have arthritis or any problems like that. I think it's gonna give you a little bit more control because it literally bends. For the face, I tried out a new foundation. This is the Strong Matte by Essence, but it was just way too matte on me. My skin is too dry. I actually ended up using the Infallible, then in place with my favorite powder, L'Oreal True Matte, and then just to take away the shine, I used this, and look at this. It has a little powder puff and it's like a fluffy one. I love it. Paper palette on the rest of my face, on my lips, of course, let's cuddle. Great thing with this type of eye look is you can go for like a cool nude or like a pinky nude, because purple kind of works with everything, but I kind of like the orangey kind of lip with then the crease. I think that it kind of works together. Do you guys want to see more looks using this palette, or is there another palette that you'd like to see? This one is by Essence and it is the Too Glam to Give a Damn palette, which I think is pretty cool. This one, which is by Wet n Wild. Let me know in the comment section what palette you'd like to see, or maybe you'd like to see more looks with this. And let's get started. So this is the palette that we're going to be using today. We have our midtone, our contour, our lid shade, and our highlight. Now for our fade shade, we're actually going to be using our blush. And I always recommend a peachy blush when it comes to purple tones. They just go really well together. So try to go for like a peachy toned blush and also lipstick, and then it'll bring the whole look together. So this is going to be our fade shade. The brushes that we're using this time are two blenders. These are slightly different blenders than I've been using before, so I'm just want to introduce you guys to these ones. And also a pencil brush and a flat brush. You'll also need a concealer brush as well. Try to get something that's nice and flat, and maybe even a little bit smaller than this one, but don't go any bigger than this. But we are going to start by priming the lid, so I'm going to take my concealer brush. And I'm using an eyeshadow primer. Highly recommend when you're using colors to use a primer. Concealer just does not do the colors justice. It won't show up or hold on to the shadows as much as you want, so go for a primer instead. Unless you want to go for like a high-end concealer, because they're usually designed for also use on the eyes. But otherwise I would go with an eyeshadow primer. We're going to apply this all over the lid. And I'm bringing it right up to those brows, which I have already filled in. And as I mentioned in week 1, brows are the most important step when it comes to your eyeshadow. They create the frame, and then your primer creates your blank canvas to work on. Once you've applied it, go ahead and start to tap out that concealer or primer base. This will just melt it into the skin a little bit better for you. Now this time we are not going to set it at all. Whenever I'm using colors, I try to not set the lid or set the concealer or set the primer, because creating that powder finish actually doesn't hold on to shadows the same way. So if you're a beginner, go ahead and use a little bit of translucent powder or neutral eyeshadow to go over the top of your primer, but otherwise try and get used to actually applying the shadows over a damp, sticky base, because that feels nice and sticky, and this will give the shadows something to hold on to. So we're going to take our blending brush to begin with. This is our applying blending brush. Remember to keep the other one nice and clean, and we're going to take our mid-tone to start with. Now, a little trick when picking a mid-tone for colors is you just want to go for basically an unsaturated version of the color that you're using on the lid. So for instance, this is the color we're using on the lid, a nice vibrant purple, and you see how this is purple, but it's a really toned down version of it. It's almost like, you know, when you're uploading a picture on Instagram and you can put the saturation all the way up or all the way down, it's basically like you took a picture of this, but you turned the saturation all the way down and you ended up with this. That's the best way to find a mid-tone. You can also go a little deeper depending on the lid color you're using, but you don't want to go too dark, because if we go too dark with our mid-tone, it'll end up looking like our contour shade. So it shouldn't be too much darker than our skin tone, but it can obviously be any color you want. As you guys can see, these two colors are very similar, but this one has a little bit more vibrancy still in it, and it's a little darker as well compared to this one, which is our mid-tone. So it's really important to know the difference between your contour and your mid-tone, and also help you guys find your mid-tone as well. So if you're still struggling at all, let me know, but basically go for an unsaturated, less vibrant, toned down version of the color that you're using on the lid. So I'm gonna take my blending brush, I'm gonna dab it into the shadow, cap off the excess. Remember, we don't swirl, because this is what happens when you swirl. You just end up with shadow everywhere. So what you want to do is just tap it in just to pick it up on the tip of the brush. So basically we're hitting this whole area above the lid, and the best way to find that is to keep your eyes open when you're applying it. Now I'm going to look down at a mirror because I'm keeping my mirror quite low so you guys can see what I'm doing, but usually when I'm doing this I keep my mirror a little higher so I get this angle, but I'm going to keep it lower just so you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm looking down in a mirror, but you can look straight on if you want to. I'm also holding the brush in the center but a little lower because I want a softer blend. We haven't set this at all, so it's going to be really sticky. So if we went in like this, it's just going to end up with like little patches. That's not going to blend for you. So keep the brush a little lower on the handle. You don't have to hold it at the bottom, just a little bit lower than the middle, and you're going to start from the outer corner and work your way in. Keep the shadows in from this point, keeping the eyes open the whole time. And I'm keeping the brush really low down. And for anybody who's been here for the last few weeks, you'll know why we keep things down. And I'm just hitting this little hooded area right here. So for my hooded friends, that will catch that hood and disguise it for you. Keeping the brush nice and low, I'm working up. So we're not doing this, we're not at eye level, we're keeping it low. Our mid-tone is always the highest eyeshadow, so we actually apply it the lowest. So we keep our hands nice and low down when we're applying because that will blend it up for us. Now what I'm going to do is move to the middle a little bit and start doing little swirling motions. Because we have a nice blend on there already with the first layer of very light shadow, we are going to start to really build this in by doing circular motions. Don't worry if it comes onto the lid, that's totally fine. We're going to be cleaning that up in a bit. Now it's up to yourself whether you want to bring it all the way in or you just want to bring it to like just where the curve of your arch starts. Just remember, this is our highest eyeshadow, so bring it up as high as you want, and then that's it. Now we're going to take our clean blending brush and we're just going to soften the outer edge of this. So just where the brow bone meets the purple, that's where we just want to go over with a clean brush just to soften it out. We're now going to take a flat brush this time and start to apply our mid-tone. No, we've just done that. Oh, my brain isn't working. Now we're going to take our flat brush and we're going to apply the contour shade. So the contour shade is darker than our mid-tone, but not as vibrant as our lid shade. And I'm just pressing the brush into it. So we're not swirling or anything, we're just pressing it in. And once you've pressed it on both sides, I want you guys just to take a little bit extra just on the tip of the brush. You guys can see that. So then we are going to start this on the outer edge and we're going to just start by bouncing it off and on the skin. And with that little bit that we collected just on the tip here, I want you guys to bring that into the crease. But remember, do not bring it up too high. We are not bringing it past our mid-tone, we're keeping it low into that crease. Don't worry if it looks messy because I'll show you guys how to clean it up. We're just working right into that inner corner, but keeping it nice and low. Do not bring it up too far. Our mid-tone is up there. You don't need to bring your contour up. Keep it nice and low. Taking our clean blending brush, we're gonna just soften the two shades together. Apply a little bit of pressure. Now we have like a nice deep color fading away all the way up. Hopefully you guys find this easy so far. If you ever need any problems, so I am here to help. But next we're going to take our fade shade or our blush, and I just want to create a nice little halo effect. I'm going to take that clean blending brush, yeah, the clean one. I know I said that we don't apply eyeshadows with the clean one, but we do apply our fade shade with it because we want it to be clean. If we applied our fade shade with the other brush, it would create a muddy effect. That's why I always keep the clean one for the fade shade as well as blending. So we're going to take a little bit of this blush, and I want you guys to hold it really far down the handle, barely touching the skin, and just go like this. Ooh. Around the edge, okay? So it's just here. So see where you have your brow bone, then you have your mid-tone. I want you guys to kind of sandwich it between those two. So just barely touch the skin. Da, 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 da. Yes to fade shade. Fade shade is the best. We will be using it again, so hold on to it. Next, we are going to half cut the crease. Now, don't worry, I have a little trick for you guys. A lot of mature women and people with dry skin were like, nah, cannot do that. It would dry out my lids, it'll make my eyes look really crinkly. I hear you, I understand. So here's a little trick for you guys. What I want you guys to do is to use a damp brush. So instead of cutting the crease, you're going to use a damp brush to apply the shadows, and you get a very similar effect. It's not as precise, but it's a very similar effect. So follow along, but you're gonna go and dampen your brush while we cut the crease. So for cutting the crease, I'm gonna take that concealer brush, and what I like to do is I squeeze it like this, just like that, so it's as flat as possible. Yes, you're gonna end up with all of this primer on your fingertips. That's okay because you can use it to like top up the very edges. So don't wipe your hands off. I hate wasting product. So you're just gonna wipe it down to keep it nice and flat. And now we are going to cut the crease, and you want to keep doing this just to keep it nice and sharp as you're cutting. Now for real beginners out there who are like, what is cutting? Basically it's kind of, how would you say, it's kind of like re-priming an area so you get more vibrancy. Basically all it is. And the reason why we say cut is because it basically cuts right up towards the crease and creates like a really sharp line and just cleans up basically everything that we've done. Because you see how certain areas have kind of come down onto the lid? We want to keep it nice and clean before we reapply, because otherwise you get a muddy, uneven finish. And I like to start from this inner edge and work down from it, and keep it looking down in a mirror, but keep your eyes slightly open. And I also find raising my eyebrow helps because it creates a smooth surface. I've never actually used this brush for cutting my crease before, but it's awesome. We're taking this to the halfway point and going a little over the halfway, like that. So to cover this up, we are going to start off with our highlighter. I'm going to take that pencil brush and apply the highlighter shade. With the highlighter shade, it doesn't really matter if it's within the right tonal family. Now this does actually have a little bit of purple, but it also has a little bit of peach in it, so it works perfectly for this look. But don't worry, any highlighter will pretty much do, as long as it's not too warm or cool depending on the other colors that you're using. Now for my mature and dry lid ladies and gents, I want you guys to use a damp brush and do this exact same way, okay? So you're basically gonna like kind of cut crease with a damp brush instead, because I know reapplying that little bit of primer can be very drying. So just imagine this brush is damp. Bring it all the way across. I like to bring it over the top, even though I will be applying the purple over it again. I just like to bring it all the way over. And now we are gonna take our purple lid shade, the sort of star of the show, on a flat brush. This is the same flat brush that we used before, so I want you guys to coat it quite well. You can always use an extra clean one if you have one going, but I like to limit how many brushes you guys have to use. And we are gonna start in the center, keeping the brush nice and low. Just pushing that on. So we're at the halfway point right now, and we're bringing it out to join up with that contour on the outer third. I'm going to take my blush shade, and I always go just around the edges so I don't really mess it up. Apply this where the highlighter and the lid shade meet, barely touching the skin. Now if you've brought it over a little too far, which I have, I'm just going to reapply a little bit of that highlighter just to make sure it's even. It's hard to know because I have a little bit of mascara on this side. I'm also going to take a little bit of that highlighter and just apply it underneath the arch of the brow. Not too much though, I never like it to be too strong. The next step is to apply a little bit of that darker shade just underneath the eye, and for that I typically use that same flat brush. Even though we've been using it this whole time, I don't mind that it's dirty. It kind of helps to blend everything together. So I'm going to actually take a little bit of that contour shade. Now if you want to really add a lot of color and vibrancy to this, go ahead and apply that purple lid shade. So apply this underneath the eyes, but I'm going to apply this one because I want it to be a little subtler. I'm going to look up and then just get it right underneath. And you can bring it around the corner. Once you've applied that underneath the eye, then take your fade shade again, a very small amount of it, and just go around the edges, barely touch the skin, okay? Seriously, really, really light. I can't even see what I'm doing, so I'm hoping this looks okay. Brush away the fallout, because we have a little bit of fallout going on. When I'm using colors, you don't want to end up with colored lashes. Maybe you do, but I don't. I like to make sure my lashes look nice and dark in order to bring out the vibrancy in the eyes. Now, unfortunately, we have quite a lot of eyeshadow that's dropped onto our lashes. Very annoying. So what I like to do is I take a very tiny little mascara wand. This one is for lower lashes. There's so many different brands that have it. This one is the Pixie one. I think it's great. Make sure there's not too much product on the brush. And basically what you want to do is to paint down the lashes in order to get rid of any of that shadow that might have dropped on those lashes, because otherwise you're going to lose that vibrancy. It really bugs me. So I'm going to start right at the base and just kind of roll down, especially in the inner corner. What I like to do is I take it and I grab it and I pull it across, and then the other way on the outer edge. And to finish, I want you guys to take liquid liner. I know, don't get scared, it's okay, it's gonna be fine, because we're not doing a wing or anything like that. All I want you guys to do is just go along the edge, like the very edge of those lashes, just literally a tiniest line that's not even visible. It's just there to darken that lash line, so your eyes are gonna look a lot more vibrant because it's gonna have that contrast of a black. I'm gonna do a whole video on liner really soon, but today we're just gonna do a really basic one, okay? You ready? So it's what I like to do. So many different ways of doing it. It's what I like to do. So I look down in a mirror and I just push down on my lashes a little bit, and I start to go along the lash line. So we're not doing a thick line or anything. We're literally coating as close to those lashes as possible, the tiniest, thinnest line possible. You don't have to even come from all the way in here. You can just start where the lashes start and aim for your lashes. If you have any questions about eyeliner, definitely let me know, because I'm going to do a video on it really soon, and I'd love to cover the things that you guys really want to know. I have finished off with some lashes. I would recommend getting lashes that are... In this video, I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks on how to add some color into your eye makeup looks. So let's get started. The first thing that you should try is applying concealer, foundation, or an eyeshadow primer onto the lids. Not only will this give the eyeshadow something to hold on to, but it'll also help to disguise any natural discoloration on the lid, which will actually help the color of your eyeshadows show up a little bit more. Now, the main parts of the eye are the lid area. This is what you can see when your eyes are closed. The crease area, where the lid creases into the eye when the eyes are open, and often refers to any area above this, but just stopping underneath the brow bone. For color, however, I split the lid into 3 sections: an inner corner, a middle, and an outer corner. And we're going to be using a layering technique to make sure that all 3 areas are completely colored, but still have some light and depth. To create any eye makeup look, we typically use 3 eyeshadows: a shade lighter, a shade darker, and then a medium shade. However, for color, we use 4. The color that you're choosing, then 1 shade lighter than that, 1 shade darker than that, and then we have a mid-tone. Typically, the mid-tone is the hardest thing to find. My personal opinion is to go for a mid-tone that's very similar to the color that you're choosing, but just a little less saturated in color. Or alternatively, it can be a lighter version of your contour. To start off this look, I'm going to apply the mid-tone using a blending brush. Our mid-tone is a sheerer, unsaturated version of our color, or a lighter version of our contour shade. A mid-tone should be matte. And you want to apply this deep into the crease of the eye, and then very softly blend it upwards. And I like to keep my eyes slightly open and just look down in a mirror, working the brush over and back, and keeping a nice soft application and slowly building it up. This will add a soft fade for the color that we're going to apply onto the lids. Now I'm going to take a slightly smaller blending brush and use this to apply the color. Choose any color that you want to. And you want to really pack this onto the lids. But you don't have to use a lot to start with. You can always build this up to make sure you get the intensity that you want. Don't feel like you have to do the first layer completely perfect. It's a bit like applying nail polish. 2 or 3 coats is sometimes needed to make sure that color shows up. And you want to apply this really close to the lash line, working upwards then towards the crease area, covering the entire lid. Make sure as you get to the crease area, there's not too much on the brush so you get that soft fade. Now taking a clean blending brush, I'm going to apply the contour shade on that outer corner. Try and keep this just on the outer corner to start with, really packing it on the outer third, and then very softly sweeping out the edges. The reason we cover the entire lid with the color and then layered this over the outer edge is just to make sure that everything works really well together. You're going to have a little bit of that color on the lid shining through underneath your contour. So it's a great way to make sure that everything's going to work really well together. Now taking a flat brush, we're going to apply the lighter highlighter shade. In this regard, I went for a very pale color with a slight pinky purple undertone. It's just going to make sure that it works really well with the colors that we've already applied. We're going to apply this really close to that tear duct area and then very gently sweep it, covering the inner third of the lid. And then there you go. Add some liner, lashes, and mascara, and you're good to go. If you have any questions, I am always here to help. Check out the other videos on the screen, and if you need some help picking out your mid-tone, in this video, I'm going to show you how to create a super easy eye makeup look using cream eyeshadow. So let's get started. The first thing that I want you to do is to apply either a foundation, concealer, or an eyeshadow primer across your lid. This is to make sure that any discoloration that we naturally have in our lids is disguised, while also giving our eyeshadow something to hold on to as well. Make sure you don't skip this even if you are using a cream eyeshadow, because even though the cream eyeshadow has some color in it, if it goes on the top of discoloration, it won't show its true color. So apply a base to start with and then use your cream eyeshadow. To create any eye makeup look, we focus on 3 areas. The lid. This is where the most work gets done and where we kind of focus on the most. The crease area is then next. And actually the crease area is just as important as the lid. The crease area refers to where the lid creases into the eye shape, but it can actually mean anywhere upwards towards the edge of the brow bone. Once you know these 3 areas, you can create any eye makeup look. I'm now going to start off by applying a cream eyeshadow. I've decided to use a purple iridescent one with a slight little bit of shimmer. I'm going to apply this on the back of my hand, and I'm actually going to apply it with my fingertips. When I apply cream eyeshadow, I like to focus on the center of the lid and then sweep it across the lid. Make sure you're keeping it on the actual lid area itself. Don't go too far up with it. And when you are applying, you're using a pressing and sweeping motion. You're not rubbing this in, you're not buffing this in. You're literally pressing and very lightly gliding over the top of that. And a great way to get an even finish is to keep your eyebrows raised the whole time as you apply it. This will create a tighter texture for the cream to glide over the top of. If you have hooded eyes or slightly more mature skin, I would recommend holding the brow upwards or supporting the edge of the eye. This will create a smooth base for you to glide over the top of. Once you've applied the cream eyeshadow, I would recommend keeping your eyes nice and still and steady, keeping those eyebrows raised, just to make sure that that cream base has time to set without creasing. And then you can move on to applying eyeshadow. To apply our first eyeshadow, I'm going to be taking a blending brush. This is the E13 from my collaboration with Blank Canvas Cosmetics. Check out the description box for more details on the brushes that I use. The first eyeshadow that we're going to be using is what I refer to as a mid-tone, but is also referred to as a transition shade. This basically transitions our colors from what we're using on the lid and then sweeping it upwards. So you're going to start this on the outer edge of the eye, working into the crease, and then slightly sweeping it upwards towards the brow bone. Make sure you don't touch the lid. Keep it nice and lightly above this, and keeping your eyes open will actually help with this application. If you're not sure where to stop and start your application, use the edge of your nose, eye, and brow as a guide and blend in from this point. And then for the inner corner, create a parallel line using your tear duct as a guide and blend in from these 2 points. Doesn't matter if you go slightly outside the lines, but just make sure the majority of the color is in between these 2 points. Now I'm going to apply a contour shade. We're going to be using exactly the same brush that we applied our mid-tone with, and we're going to focus this on the outer third of the eye. So don't worry this time about going over the top of your cream base. By now it should have set, so it won't hold on to too much eyeshadow, but you may find that you don't have to use as much contour as normal. Focus this on the outer third and then softly sweep this deep into the crease, keeping it nice and low. Your mid-tone is always higher than your contour. I did find that the eyeshadows were a little bit too warm for this purple, so this technique is all about cooling it down. So I'm going to take a black, or you can take a gray, and you want to very slightly and gently sweep this over the top of what you've already applied. Alternatively, if you need to warm something up, you can use like an orange or a yellow to create that warmth. Either way, you want to keep the application really light and sheer. Not only will this technique deepen the look, but it'll also cool it down for us, making sure that it then matches the purple on the lid. If you need more help on how to pick out colors that work well together, check out my last Monday makeup lesson, where I talk about how to make sure that your colors all work together. Next, I'm going to take a flat brush and a highlighter. A highlighter is always at least one shade lighter than the color or the cream eyeshadow base that we're using on the lid. So for this one, I used a pearly white to pick up on the light silvery tones within the cream eyeshadow. And we're going to focus this on the inner corner of the lid. Once I've done all of this, I like to go back over the center part with a little extra of the cream eyeshadow. This will really help to make sure it pops and shines, but bear in mind it has to be a very small amount. Otherwise it may start to build up and crack. So keep it nice and light and sheer. Finish off with some eyeliner, mascara, and lashes, and there you go. Super easy look, really fun to apply, and a great way to add in some texture and tones within your eyeshadow looks.